And this one is definitely for petrol heads. It's episode 12 of Midlander in the Mountains. Run VT! Thank you for joining me. Today we are going to visit the small, pretty town of Aspang in Lower Austria, where we will go inside a private car museum with over 120 exhibits. Ashbach Markt is located about an hour's drive south of Vienna, just off the A2 autobahn, and as you drive into the small town, on your right hand side is the former Hotel Schwarzer Adler. Next door to it is a small door which leads us to today's destination. Walk inside and you are entering a world that was established by a former electrical engineer turned businessman and property magnate who was absolutely crazy about collecting things. There's not only a collection of toy cars and some motoring memorabilia along with a scooter and a couple of motorcycles, but there's even beer bottles on the way to the toilets. I just had a feeling this would be my kind of place. As you walk through the door into the corridor which leads down to the grand hall downstairs, the walls are adorned with advertising placards from the Semprit Rubber Works, which is still in production today. Some of which remind me of just how boring modern advertising can be. Then comes the wow. Over 120 cars, spanning 120 years, most of which can be seen in a catalogue which is available from reception for €15. Now at this point, I feel I should introduce the catalogue, which covers most of the exhibits here. I do suspect perhaps a couple more have been snuck in since it was printed about 10 years ago. And it also tells us about the life of the man who was responsible for this wonderful collection of motor cars. Gräf Durnbacker was born in 1920. And he lived here in Aspang in an old mill. In 1936, a very unfortunate incident befell his family when his father lost the family home to his creditors. However, this didn't deter Gräf Durnbacker in any way from making a success of his own life. He graduated from the Technical University of Vienna, and after the war, he began his collecting with not motor cars, but stamps. You see, Mr. Durnbacker would buy entire collections. He would cherry pick the most collectible stamps, trade them on, and invest his money back in more stamps. Good old-fashioned horse trading. Years later, Gräf Durnbacker was so successful that he managed to buy back his original family home, which is a wonderful story. I think that's absolutely stone cold magic. But it didn't end there. When the Hotel Schwarzer Adler, or Black Eagle, came up for sale, he bought that too and added this hall. And that was where the collection really began to grow. So, having established that he had the right finances to buy such a collection of cars, where did he find them? The short answer is everywhere. He bought cars privately and from friends and from other people that he knew. At the fall of communism, he picked cars up that people had just abandoned on the border. He travelled all over Europe, far and wide, to acquire his motor vehicles. But only 3 of them actually came out of another established museum collection. The Renault Doktorwagen behind me, so called because it had 2 doors and space in the back for a doctor to put his equipment when he did his rounds. And over here, the Wehrmacht, which is another 2-door doctor's car. And the Adler Morgan here. Whilst Morgan is a name British motor enthusiasts are very familiar with, Adler probably isn't. They were a German company who used to ship their chassis and motors across to the United Kingdom, where Morgan used to body them. Take a good look at this one, because it's the only one of its exact type in the whole world. This 1908 Delaunay Bella Villa is a hunting car, which the catalogue states was the sort of thing that you would never drive yourself, you would only get your chauffeur to do it. Quite right. One of the smallest cars in the collection is one of the oldest, an original horseless carriage. That sits opposite a couple of horseless fire tenders. And that brings us on to a Model T snowmobile. Come on, let's get on to the Roaring Twenties. These are former local hotel taxis that ferried people from the station. This one's called a Whippet, but I'm not too sure about the colour. There's then a small military section. Then there's interwar cars, probably picked up for a song post-war. Which brings us on to post-war, and something very familiarly British. Cue the first Italian jobs. Then at the far corner of the museum hides a selection of racing cars. Cue the first taste of American iron, but not the last. Then there's another row of eye candy. Something for the Porsche lovers. And old classic after old classic after old... Jury's out on that one. And keeping the British end up, more Jaguars. The museum founder was an adoring Mercedes-Benz fan. You won't be disappointed. Alfa Romeo Montreal, utility vehicles, and upstairs, even some little ones. And there's a section where there are a number of vehicles in really as-found condition. It reminded me a little bit of an auction. They are literally squeezed in like sardines in a tin. But it's honest and genuine, and I like that. With so many wonderful motor cars to choose from, when it came to showcasing a vehicle, I could have chosen one of the Jaguars, MGs or Bentleys being British, but I felt that was way too obvious. Or one of the VWs or Porsches, even Kurt Durnbacker's beloved Mercedes-Benz. But no, I've decided against any of those because there's one vehicle here which you won't see in too many museums. And in my opinion, it's absolutely formidable. But before I show it to you, in full that is, maybe I should tell you something about the mighty Gräf Stift. Karl Heinrich and Franz Gräf were bicycle manufacturers who made this their first car in around 1897. It was front-wheel drive, which made it extremely unusual at the time. It never went into production, they only ever made one, but it caught the attention of an Austrian industrialist by the name of Wilhelm Stift, resulting in a partnership in 1902 of Gräf and Stift. They initially toyed with racing cars made for somebody else, but then in 1907 began making vehicles for themselves, both commercials and high-end luxury vehicles. They even made one for the Kaiser. Ironically, it was in a 1910 double phaeton that on the 28th of June 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand was shot and assassinated in Sarajevo, the shot that changed the world. But the company continued going from strength to strength, and by the time this shot was taken in 1920, they had around 1,000 employees. The interwar period saw various models of the absolute highest quality, but after 1939, they never made another car again. Post-World War II, they only ever made commercials, until in 1971 they were bought by MAN Trucks. They used the name for 30 years, and then Gräf and Stift became no more. This is a 1936 Gräf and Stift SP8. All 3.5 tons of it. Unlike the pictures of other ones I've seen, there's no chrome on the grille and there's a menacing bar between the headlights. The front bumper's not in any way decorative, it's very angular, very kind of official. From 1916, the Gräf and Stift mascot was a lion standing on top of the world, a replica of those which stand on top of the Schermell Bridge in Vienna. And under those grills lies a 6-litre engine. I'd like to think it's just sleeping. Most of the boot is actually filled with a large petrol tank. There's what appears to be 2 number plate holders on the back of the vehicle, one for the number plate and perhaps the other for some kind of official recognition. I can't begin to impress on you how big and formidable this is. Even the wheels on this car are huge. They use split rims, the kind of thing that make it easier to get tyres on and off, which they used to use on lorries. As you walk round this car, you notice a few of its little imperfections, but you have to accept the fact that it's nearly 90 years old. The doors don't close properly, but there might be a very good reason for that. They've dropped. Because I'll now tell you that this particular SP8 is armoured. This car belonged to the federal government during the Schuschnigg period between 1934 and 1938, immediately preceding the takeover of Austria by the Third Reich. Kurt von Schuschnigg's predecessor had been assassinated, so whoever ordered this was taking no chances. And given, albeit by accident, Gräf Stift's track record with assassinations, it was probably a very, very wise move. Now, I suspect the carpet's been changed, and how much of this we see inside the vehicle is the original interior, I have absolutely no idea. But given the fact that this was something of a symbol of the state, has probably almost certainly been used through the Second World War, and who only knows whose hands it was in afterwards, it's a wonder it's even survived at all. You can forgive it the fact that somebody's liberated the clocks off the dashboard. This is a motor car from an age which is difficult for most to even comprehend, but one thing is for sure, it's absolutely beautiful. Kurt Durnbacker died in 2005, leaving behind him not only this collection, but an extremely successful business career. I couldn't have made this film without the permission of the family, and I thank them very, very much. And also for all the assistance of the staff here, in particularly Hans Konopiski. Until next time, and please do click like and subscribe. Thanks very much. Ta-da.
Draws me to you. You bring me out from nowhere. You shine like a sun. There's a mystery in your eyes of blue, and it's your smile that tells me you're the one. I wanna take you on a tour of the flowers, a tour of the flowers. I wanna spend an incredible hour on a tour of the flowers. I wanna take you on a tour of the flowers, a tour of the flowers. I wanna spend an incredible hour on a tour of the flower. To see all of history in a shower of every god and all their wisdom and power. I'll take you